Welcome back to Nothing But the Truth. I'm your host, Trudy Stern, and tonight's conversation is a little different than what we usually do, but it may be one of the most important that we've had. We spend a lot of time on this show focused on geopolitics, wars, elections, and power. But sometimes, to understand where the world is heading, we need to step back and look at something more personal: the life experience of people, communities, and societies that believed that they were safe until suddenly they weren't. For decades, Australia was seen as one of the safest places in the world to be Jewish. A vibrant democracy, strong institutions, a proud multicultural society. Jews lived openly, raised families, practiced their faith freely, and contributed at every level of civic life without fear. And then something changed. Warnings were issued, Jewish leaders raised alarms, Israel sounded the call, and yet those warnings went unheeded until violence reached even the most iconic public places. When Jews were targeted at Bondi Beach, a place synonymous with freedom and openness and Australian identity, it shattered the illusion that anti-Semitism was a relic of the past. Even more disturbing was what came next: a national reluctance to call it what it was. So tonight, we're asking a hard but necessary question. How did Australia get here? And could this be a warning for the United States? To help us understand not just the events, but the psychology behind them, the denial, the normalization, the silence, I'm joined by someone uniquely qualified to guide this conversation: Dr. Margo Lowy, a respected psychotherapist, author, and Jewish voice from Sydney, Australia. Margo has spent her professional life helping people understand trauma, identity, and emotional undercurrents that shape societies. She is the author of 2 books, widely read for their insight into human behavior, resilience, and moral clarity. She also comes from one of Australia's most preeminent families, and she raised her own family in a country she believed, and so many did, would always be a safe and welcoming home for Jews. Margo brings a rare perspective to this moment. She has lived through the shift. She has watched the warning signs appear, and she understands, both professionally and personally, how societies slide from tolerance to hostility, often without realizing until it's too late. Tonight, we're going to talk about what happened in Australia, what it reveals about anti-Semitism in Western democracies, and whether the United States is at risk for following the same path. This isn't about fear, it's about clarity, and it's about paying attention while there's still time. Margo Lowy, welcome to Nothing But the Truth.
Thank you, Trudy. It's so nice to make a connection with you. And we've got a lot of history that we've just discovered about each other and about our families. And I'll try and throw some light on what's been happening in Sydney over the last couple of weeks. It's not a surprise, it's not a shock, but I think we're all in shock.
Wow.
That
Well,
yeah.
to begin with, let's take you back to your childhood and how, I know you grew up in Australia. Tell us about that. Tell us about your family and what it was like.
Okay. I was born in 1956 in Sydney, Australia, to Australian parents. Both my mother and father were born in Sydney. My mother's family and part of my family, my father's family, came to Australia to get away from pogroms. And I think that when I look back and when I talk to friends about our childhood and our time up till about October the 7th, we were pretty blessed. We were brought up in Sydney was a mixture between an Australian and a Holocaust society. Although my parents weren't Holocaust survivors, most of my friends' parents were, and many of my friends' parents had numbers on their arms. They'd been to camps, and I actually um, remember very clearly when my father-in-law talked about his experience of the Holocaust, and he actually did not talk about it till he was 50 years old. So I think in Australia, and it's probably the same everywhere, some survivors talked about it all the time, some talked about it at some time, and some never talked about it. But the point is, in growing up, we were very aware of the Holocaust and about the tragedy. And the sense was that we felt very safe in Australia. And I remember being a child, I went to a Church of England girls' school, and there was probably some veiled anti-Semitism, but for me, I felt really safe. I also felt for myself, for some reason, that education was very important for me, and that was that was very important to my family. And I think for all Jewish people, Holocaust or not, we really felt that education was very important. And um, that's a narrative for all, I think, for all Jewish people. So I was brought up in that culture. I just want to mention that there was a Jewish museum was established in the early 90s, 1992. And but what I also want to mention was that although my father was Australian, but he had a very, very strong Jewish neshama or heart. He actually enlisted to go to the to fight in World War II. He wasn't yet 18, so he couldn't give his proper age. Didn't tell his mother, but went to enlist to help the Australians and the all of the allies to fight the war. He went to New Guinea for a short period of time. And why I'm telling that story is to to just enlighten people of the contribution that Australians made and Jewish Australians made. And I think my father, if he saw what was happening now, I know he would be so devastated to see what has happened to his beloved Australia. And
Well,
he believed that his family was safe. And that is a shattering thing. That would have been shattering for him.
so two things that I think we want to bring out for the listeners. First of all, that Australia was the very first country to recognize the state of Israel. Um,
Yes.
and
Yes. Very good. Very, yes.
so from the very beginning, Australia was a very supportive,
Yes. Yes.
pro-Israel
Yes.
environment to be in.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and also another fact that came out in our pre-discussion was that um, Australia has the largest population of Holocaust survivors outside of Israel.
Yeah. Yeah. Per capita. So yeah, Holocaust survivors were part of our life, not just they were part of our lives. And it's very close.
We're very welcomed into your society and welcomed and felt safe
Yes.
and felt
Well, say
comfortable to be there.
yeah, maybe not always totally welcomed, maybe, but as they showed themselves to be hardworking, diligent people, yes, they were. When I was born, yes, we were very much seen as big contributors. And if we look at the contribution that Australian Jewish people have made, it's very, very, very significant. We've got leaders in industry, in education, in science, doctors, everywhere. It's just we're very prominent, and it's like in any part of the world. And at the moment, we've got 130,000 Jewish Australians amongst about 27 million people. And I know you were surprised about how small that number was, and it is small. and that it's kind of unbelievable how small we are, but how significant we are, and how we've been targeted. Um, so we're so small,
Such a
and
such a small segment of the population, but yet your this small segment was so prominent in terms of its contributions to Australian
and
society
is and is and is
and continues to be so.
and continues to be so. But um, I was doing a little bit of research myself because the dates kind of get confused. But what I do want to say is, since just want to talk a little bit about how over the years our schools and our synagogues have had to rely um, on police and on protect. We've had to be protected. I think in the 1990s, it was just there was some volunteer guards outside our synagogues and outside our kindergartens, and now it's everywhere. You cannot go into a synagogue or into a school. You can't get in there. And I noticed because we're now based in New York, and I was a bit surprised when I used to go to synagogue with my son on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And up to a few years ago, there wasn't really guards there or at the kids' school. And I was a little bit surprised because that's what I was used to. And maybe that was like a harbinger of what was going to happen later when I think about it, because there was a few attacks I think it was the 1980s. There was some bombs went off at the Westfield offices, which is where my husband worked in, I think it was the 80s. And then there was another one straight after at the Hakoah Club, which is a Sydney social Jewish club. So there was kind of a little bit of kind of they didn't that no one was, I think someone might have been injured, but there was kind of little signs even then.
And what did the government do in those days? Were they very
Um,
supportive?
I mean, very, very supportive. And we had all the prime ministers, there was a Labour prime minister who was a left prime minister called Bob Hawke. And there was also a Liberal prime minister called John Howard, very, very supportive of the Jewish people always. And John Howard talked last week. He's still living, and he said how he, Bob Hawke and him, while they were opponents politically, they used to go together to Jewish functions to support the Jewish people. That's how safe we felt. We felt our prime ministers were on our side, that they had our back. So it's no wonder that we felt safe. We felt heard, and I think this is one of the frightening things with what's happened since October the 7th. And John Howard, I think it was he actually mentioned it. He said that Australians had said, okay, we weren't heard, that was one thing, but we felt unwanted. And when
Wow.
I heard that word, it was just chilling for me, because that is frightening. To feel not heard, not listened to, okay, but that's bad enough. But to feel unwanted, it's very, very frightening. And I think that is where the line's drawn. I think that before there were issues, but we didn't feel unwanted.
So would you say that, well, actually, at some point, something obviously shifted. Would you say it was October 7th, or would you say no, that there was something brewing underneath the surface of the society? But when did you notice things changed and that it really wasn't the same country that you grew up in?
Okay, okay. Well, that's a good point. Okay. And I just want to go back a second. I don't think that the word unwanted, it's more like now from 2 weeks ago. I think we weren't really unwanted, but I think that came to the fore. And I don't think that every person, there is that everyone, I'm not saying everyone here is anti-Semitic. They're not. But I think what happened, I think it changed. It did change, obviously, since October the 7th. There were many pleas from Australian Jews to be listened to. You know, after October the 7th happened, on October the 8th, the IDF had not done anything. There was nothing done, and there were already cries to the by Australians to, I can't remember the exact words, but there's not a clarity, but it was something about gas the Jews because there was something pro-Jewish put on our well-known opera house sales. So there was already things happening then. There was already an unease, and nothing. The IDF hadn't even done anything yet. So this is what started, and then over the next number of years until I think it's the 14th of December, which is the Bondi massacre, there was a continued barrage. There was arson, there was graffiti. Jewish people were scared. There was even people driving through the eastern suburbs where a lot of Jewish people live, crying out things like Jew hatred. And it was just very uncomfortable. And also at the schools, at the synagogues, there was arson. There was a synagogue in Melbourne that was burnt down. It was a lot. There was a lot going on, and our voices weren't heeded. And you know, people were saying, commentators were saying, something's going to happen. And it did happen. And we weren't shocked. We didn't think it would be like this, but it happened. And
So
I really,
would you say that there is a difference between what had happened since October 7th? October 7th unleashed a tremendous amount of anti-Semitism all over the world. But
yes.
the degrees of the anti-Semitism are different. So would you say that the degree in Australia was different than the degree that you saw in New York when you were in New York?
That's a good question. I think because Australia has a smaller Jewish population, it was much more concentrated. I think in Sydney, because I'm talking about Sydney, I think there might be about 40,000 Jewish people, and it was affected everyone everywhere. It was in the local streets where we are, where we live, where our children go to school. It was just it was just visceral. And I'm not saying it was less visceral than in New York. I mean, in New York, I'm in shock. We're based in Midtown, and I just can't believe that we're 45 minutes away from 9/11, right? Drive away, maybe 30 minutes away from Columbia University, where Jewish students have been just terrified, and everything's been anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic there. There's that there. But if we go to, stay in Australia, yes, it was very, 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 very scary, very visceral. I can't compare them. But what I do believe, and I've been trying to articulate it for myself. And last week it came to me. And what it came to me was that I believe, in a sense, that Australia is a test case for what is going on in the world. Because I think the anti-Semitism has increased to such a degree. And I think what Bondi marks is that how far can we push it? And how far is the government going to go? There is an issue with the government in Australia. It's been very weak in supporting the Jewish people, I believe. I'm talking about the federal government now. I'll just give you an example. The federal government, led by our Anthony Albanese, has been very backward and slow in naming anything anti-Semitic. And there is a foreign minister, Penny Wong, who is definitely pro-Palestinian, an anti-Semite. She did visit Israel after October 7th, refused to go to the south, refused to go to any of the kibbutzes there, and she has absolutely not, her voice has not been heard since the Bondi massacre, and she is really not our friend. And I think she steers a lot of the Albanese, the federal government policy. But I do want to say that the state government here, led by Chris Minns, has been unbelievable. A supporter of the Jewish community, coming out all the time, trying to, he has our back, Chris Minns, trying to help us. And that's been wonderful. But I want to go back to what I'm saying. I think if the government, you see, I think there's some kind of, it's, as I said, it's some kind of a test thing, a test case here. And if Australia, if our government does not do something about the anti-Semitism here and is not strong and does not crush it and does not go into understanding the growth, then I think we're going to get then I think their weakness is going to mean that it's going to be copied throughout the world. That's what I believe. Australia's a little country, but because of its history, because it's changed so much, because it's gone from the country that supported Israel at the United Nations to a country that's harboring so much anti-Semitism, this is the perfect storm. This is the place to see what's happened. And if we continue to be apologists for this, and if we continue to accept that, if the government accepts it, it's going to continue. It's going to unleash more anti-Semitism. So it needs to be stopped. It reminds me so much of Neville Chamberlain in that time. They just appeased. These people cannot be appeased. They need strength. They need to be told, no, we're not going to put up with that. We're not going to let our civilization be spoiled. And this goes back also to what I think about the government here, because I think Albanese, when he talks about the Bondi massacre, what he says is it is an attack on Australian Jewish people. No, Anthony, it's not an attack. Yes, it is an attack on Jewish people, but it is an attack on Australia. He's trying to make it into an attack on Jewish people. And I just want to give you some background on Bondi Beach and on the massacre. Bondi Beach is one of our icons. It goes together with the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge, which actually, I just want to mention, like last month or the month before, there was a Palestinian march allowed on our harbour bridge. The government did nothing to stop that. The police did nothing to stop that. Anyway, I want to go back to Bondi for a second. Okay, Bondi Beach is a place where all people go. They love it. That Sunday was a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Part of the beach, part of the day, there was going to be a beautiful Hanukkah lighting that many people, and it was by the Chabad community, that many people attended. As well as that, there were many non-Jewish people There were many Australians, there were many tourists. It's a beautiful place that all people feel safe to come to. So this terrorist decided it was a good idea. And by the way, I don't think this was planned, and it wasn't only planned in Australia. There's a network. Anyway, this beautiful balmy afternoon, these terrorists shot their guns, not only killing Jewish people, they all and hurting Jewish people. Two non-Jewish men were killed. Now let's not forget that. And there's also videos of young people, because it's a young people's place, running for their lives. Now, of course, that reminds us of the Nova Festival. And they were running, fearful of their lives. Now, these people, some were Jewish. I'm sure the majority of them were not Jewish people. They were people going to Bondi Beach with their families, trying to have a beautiful Sunday afternoon in the summer, and they were basking in the freedom of Australia. And that was shattered that day. This is an Australian problem. It is a, a it is a problem for our freedom. And that does not only mean Australia, Bondi Beach. It means New South Wales. It means Australia. It means New York. It means America. It means Europe. It means the whole world. And I believe that this turns back to what I'm saying about Australia being a test case, because it's not only a test case about anti-Semitism. It's a test case for our freedom and our democracy. And is the world willing to, is our democratic world willing to change it? Are we willing to let these massacres take place everywhere? In the middle again of New York, in Los Angeles, in London, in Rome, we've seen it everywhere. Now these people have got to be dealt with. Otherwise, I have a fear, not for me, not for my husband. I fear for our children, and I fear terribly for our grandchildren. When I look at our beautiful innocent grandchildren, that's what I fear for. And what kind of a world are they going to live in? I don't believe they're going to have the charmed life that we had, where we felt safe. And we need to do something about this. This is our responsibility.
So what is the mood now in Sydney? You're in Sydney right now. What
I'm in
is
Sydney right
the
now.
mood amongst
Okay, the
the
mood is
people?
okay. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's like we're not shocked. We're in shock, and we're worried, and we want to do something about it, and we need to be courageous. And I think I really want to talk now about how I see the Israelis. And I think we need to bring some of their spirit into how we deal with this. Because what happens in Israel? There's a terrorist attack, or there's October the 7th, a terrible, terrible tragedy. What do the Israelis do? They mourn, they grieve, they get on with it the next day. And that's what I believe we have to be strong, and we have to do. We owe this to our children and to our grandchildren. I don't know how, but I know we cannot show weakness.
In Sydney right now, has the government reached out to the Jewish community and reassured them?
Um,
And,
the state government has been unbelievable.
in what
The
way?
federal government,
What have
they've
you,
been with Chris Minns. There was a service last week. He spoke beautifully about his affinity to the Jewish people. He's a Catholic man who he finds this terrorism abhorrent. He finds anti-Semitism abhorrent, and he's trying to put pressure on the government. There has been a royal commission. I think it's going to be a state one, hopefully, and a federal one to look into what went wrong, why there wasn't enough police presence at this Hanukkah celebration. There wasn't enough. There was a just to detour a little bit. There's a community group called CSG in Australia that it's a community I think I'm not sure, it's community service group. I'm not sure if that's the right one. Don't quote me on that. But it's a group of young people mainly that help every Shabbat at the synagogue. They stand outside the synagogue to make sure it's safe. They do a fantastic job. So there were groups of many of those, but they were not able to be armed. And there was many stories, and this gives us a lot of courage about that day, about Bondi. Actually, a Muslim man more saved the day. He actually went for the gunman. You've probably seen that. And there was another. It was unbelievable. A Muslim man did that. And there were many, many stories of bravery on that day. There was my friend Sturny Dadon, and you've probably seen this. Her daughter, who's 14, covered and saved the life of 2 3-year-olds. There was so many stories of bravery, of people helping, of our true soul. And that's really the Jewish soul, the Australian soul. And there was lifesavers that came in and helped. There was ambulance. There were the police. It was unbelievable. And when we talk about the Bondi massacre, we have to think and remember the spirit of these people. And this is what we can't lose. And this is what my father's spirit was, the good Aussie that helped other people, the upstanding Australian soul. And that little girl, Haya, the 14-year-old girl, and I understand because I've worked very closely with her mother on writing she set up an infertility organization, and that Habad mentality of helping others came out that day with everyone. It just came out. And we have to save and preserve this. This is our democracy. This is what we have. And we can't let it go. And we have to be free to be able to do this. We have to be free to walk on Bondi Beach, free in our swimming gear. That women being able to wear their swimming costumes, women being able to be educated, our daughters, our freedom. This is what's at stake. It's our world freedom. It's our democracy. And let's not get this wrong. And I'm not exaggerating this. These are all the signs. We had them in Australia and we've got them everywhere. We have to heed them.
So now for my final question to you, I want to ask you as a psychotherapist, after everything that you have seen and lived through, do you believe that society can course correct once this anti-Semitism has become normalized, or do you not feel that way?
Okay, I feel hopeful. We've got a long history as Jewish people. I think that we have to be courageous and we have to put pressure. We have to advocate for ourselves. We have to put pressure on the government. I think I have been a little emotional today. I think that we can have some emotion, but we have to know. We have to arm ourselves with facts. We have to know facts. I think the Jewish community, say in Australia, is strong. It's influential. We have to use that to inform people. And I mean, I think it is. It says something that Labor government was voted back in again not so long ago, and I think that hopefully we can be heard. I think what's really important is not to be binary. And I think that Anthony Albanese is binary. He talks about only the Jewish people. It's an Australian issue. It's a world issue. And as a lot of my work, I don't believe in making things binary. I believe in using and. It's the Jewish community and the Australian community. Let's not split, because when we split, that's where we have problems. So I do believe we have to have hope. We have to be courageous. We have to listen to others. We can't be naive, but I truly believe that Australia is a test case and we have to get this right.
So I just want to say that this show has been all about arming my listeners with facts and all of the things that are happening, and hearing it from the experts and the people who are making these things happen. And I feel very strongly like you do, and I think it's a tremendous point that it is so important to be informed. So
Yes.
I want to thank you so much, Dr. Margo Lowy, for coming on tonight and being with us and sharing your thoughts about Australia, the Australian community, what happened in Bondi, as well as your whole life in Australia, and how it can be a foreshadow and helpful to what is happening all around the world, but particular to us here in New York. It really, Australia is a case study how liberal democracies can begin to normalize anti-Semitism, and how institutions fail minorities when ideology replaces moral clarity, like we saw, and how a safe, thriving Jewish community can unravel far more quickly than anyone ever imagined.
Yeah.
This must be understood clearly. It's not just an attack on Jews, it's an attack on the West, on Western values, on freedom, on democratic societies. Viewing it any other way plays into the hands of those enemies who seek to weaken and ultimately eliminate Western civilization.
And our freedom.
Absolutely.
I just want to say one last thing. I'm in Sydney. I'm based in New York, and fortuitously, in a weird way, I'm here now. And to be here at this time it's both. It's terrible on one hand, but on the other hand, for me, I walked over that bridge the other day. I brought up my children. We live 10 minutes from there. And it was such a feeling of emotion to walk over that bridge and to see what has happened to this country. It's to walk over there and to visit Bondi. If I would have been anywhere else, I would have had to come, because I had to feel it and I had to witness it and I had to feel the community and the pain and the suffering. And we can't allow this. And as you said, and as I've said, we have to do something.
Absolutely. That's why this conversation mattered so much, not just for Jews in Australia, but for Jews everywhere, and for anyone who cares about the future of free society.
Yes, it's not only Jews, it's all of us that value freedom and hope and life.
Margo, thank you so much for your courage, for your honesty, for sharing your personal story and insights with us tonight. Your voice is an important one, and we're so grateful that you joined us. To our listeners, thank you for joining us. This has been Nothing But the Truth with Trudy Stern. You can catch us every Thursday at 9:30 p.m. on the radio. But if you missed any part of this show or want to listen to any of our past episodes, you can find Nothing But the Truth wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, stay strong, stay informed, and keep seeking nothing but the truth.